morning, ladies and gentlemen. Last week we got to go crazy in a 2020 Subaru BRZ TS. Today we're going to talk about the technical details and specs of the first gen BRZ, FR-S, and 86. Should be a fun episode. Let's get into it. By the mid-2000s, Toyota pretty much shit the bed when it came to performance cars. What I mean by that is that they pooped in their own bed. Which is a shame because, like them or not, Toyota makes really good, reliable cars. But they didn't have any rear-wheel drive sports cars anymore. Fortunately for the world of speed, the businessmen did the business and Toyota bought a big piece of Fuji Heavy Industries, a company well known in the car world for a very special brand called Subaru. Subaru also didn't make any rear-wheel drive sports cars, but unlike Toyota, they still made cool, fast things. They weren't bed poopers. Together, the two companies would build a new sports car that everybody could love, the Toyota GT86, and the Subaru BRZ, and the Scion FR-S. So we'll get more into the differences in a minute, but for the most part, the FR-S, BRZ, and GT86 are pretty much rebadged versions of the same car. They're all powered by the same 2-liter FA20D 4-cylinder Boxer engine. And above anything else, all these cars are meant for the corners. The Boxer engine is interesting because the cylinders don't go up, and they don't go in a V, they go sideways. Boxer engines aren't quite as rigid as standard configurations, but they also aren't as tall, meaning you can achieve a lower center of gravity, which in turn means better handling. The 2-liter engine is basically Subaru's standard FA20 Boxer engine with a fuel injection system designed by Toyota, giving these cars about 200 horsepower and 150 pound-feet of torque. Now I know what you're thinking, Caleb, those numbers don't sound all that impressive. And you're right, it's not that impressive at all. Those numbers are kind of sad, really. That being said, these cars still have a pretty good power to weight ratio. And they did that by keeping the vehicle below 3,000 pounds. That's pretty rare these days. The GT86 was 167 inches long, 70 inches wide, and about 51 inches tall, with a wheelbase of 101 inches and a track width of 60 inches. It was a little tiny vehicle. The car sit on a McPherson strut front suspension with a double wishbone setup in the back. They intentionally made the front springs a little bit squishy and the rear springs a little bit stiff. What this does is it makes the car friggin' slide everywhere all the time. Now normally, sliding through a curve isn't quite as fast as just driving through it, but it is way more fun. The 86 is capable of pushing from a complete stop to 60 miles an hour in 6 to 7 seconds, with a quarter-mile time in the 15-second range and a top speed of about 140 miles an hour. It's got very effective disc brakes, with dual piston calipers in the front and a single piston caliper in the rear. The car has a pretty tight turn radius of 18 feet and manages to keep itself very planted and flat throughout even the sharpest of the corners. With the exception of straight line speed, these cars are impressive performers in pretty much every way. And they are impressive without being super expensive. Not only are they cheap to buy and maintain, the cars also don't eat up a lot of gasoline. They make about 30 miles a gallon on the highway. So let's talk about what's actually different between the models. The Toyota version is called the GT86, which incorporated the names of the classic Toyota 2000 GT and the AE86. These two cars, as well as the lesser-known Sports 800, were some of the biggest inspirations for the vehicles and heavily shaped the way they perform. The Scion version was called the FR-S, which simply stands for Front Engine Rear-Wheel Drive Sport. Scion was basically Toyota's fun car brand in North America. And other than badging and a couple tweaks, it was effectively the same as the Toyota version. It didn't have quite as many luxury options and served as kind of a base model out of the three. Unfortunately, Scion is no longer around, but they did manage to sell quite a few FR-S's while they were still here. The Subaru version is called the BRZ, which stands for Boxer Engine Rear-Wheel Drive Zenith. The word zenith meaning basically at the peak of one's performance. The BRZ has what most would consider a slightly nicer interior, and the suspension seems a little bit stiffer than the FR-S. I haven't personally driven the GT86, but I have driven BRZs and FR-S's, and there are certainly tweaks to the suspension that slightly changes the way they perform. The BRZ seems a little more performance focused, with the FR-S being more of a good time toy. The one I drove in last week's video was called the BRZ TS, which was Subaru's higher performance version tuned by STI. The engine remained the same, but they pulled out all the stops to make it handle just incredibly well. The TS is quite rare, but if you can get your hands on one, it really does seem worth it if you're focused on track times. The different models and special editions of these cars all have slightly different tunes that affect handling characteristics. Realistically though, just go for the one you think looks the best, as they're all very fun cars and for the most part, they're pretty similar. Take some out for a test drive and see what you like. I know we all love high horsepower monsters, but it's pretty much impossible to drive one of these things and not have a great time. If you want to see more about the actual driving experience, make sure to check out last week's video with the BRZ TS. I've been doing a whole series on cars that I consider to be 21st century classics, and these will surely be remembered as fun, driver-focused cars. Anyways, thank you for watching, consider subscribing to us here at The Left Pedal, and I will see you next time.